All right, we have got an awesome brand here, an emerging brand, really, really unique. We've got one of the executives of the company. You're not going to want to miss this.
This, this is the Franchise Pitfalls and Profit Show. Each week, we bring you the challenges and triumphs of being in the franchise development and consulting business. The things you need to make money faster. And now your host, one of the most successful franchise developers in North America, Don Shin.
All right. Welcome, everybody. We have got Josh Reed with us. Josh has been in the franchising world almost as long as I have. He's got 16 years in franchising. He's an investor and executive with the emerging brand Xtension Envy. What's been really cool about learning about this is they've got really, really unique subscription model. Their model is just easier to get extensions for the clients. It's just really cool. And so, Josh, thanks, man, for joining us. I appreciate it.
No, my pleasure, Don. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. You bet. Well, I want to dive right in, Josh. Unless there's anything you want to add to the quick intro. Anything you want to add to the quick intro?
Not necessarily, Don. I think it was excellent, as stated. Just to give a little bit more insight for those folks listening into what my personal professional background is. During that 16 years, I've been with a handful of pretty notable and noteworthy concepts in the health, wellness, beauty, and/or fitness spaces, including Massage Envy, the Joint Chiropractic, European Wax Center, to name just two or three of
just a couple, yeah,
just two or three of some recognizable ones. And what's been really exciting for me, Don, is that I was part of those organizations as they were very early on in their development, right? And so I had the chance to really see how successful brands get built. And I was able to learn from some of the best in the business. I feel really honored to have had those opportunities. And now I'm just super excited every day to bring those learnings to the brands that I'm working with today and to people like yourself and your listeners. Any way I can help other people with their success is a good day for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's something I tell my clients and certainly our listeners, particularly with an emerging brand. You want to look at the executives. What kind of background do the executives have? And what a lot of people don't realize is that franchising is actually, it's two businesses. It's the business that you're in and you do, but then franchising is a business in and of itself. So I always advise folks to be sure that your emerging brands have executives that have, or the executive team has both.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Don.
Well, as a stakeholder, one of the things maybe a transition here is what was attractive to about this brand for you?
We recognized that there was a gap in this particular segment of the beauty industry. And what I mean by that is hair extensions and the installation of those hair extensions has historically been an ancillary service at best in most salons. And we realize that the consumers today are getting hair extensions and wanting hair extensions and talking about hair extensions more and more and more. And there was no one in the industry that took an understanding of how to build a multi-location network, right? And really claim their place as the go-to brand when people want hair extensions. And the founder, he and his wife, Scott and Christine Lewandowski, wonderful people, super smart, super experienced, not only in franchising, but in the beauty industry as well. And, they built the foundation of a model that was rock solid.
Oh,
And
cool.
when we saw that, we said, we need to be a part of this.
Cool, cool. So, working with the owners then, and obviously being an investor still, what was the initial vision, from the standpoint of growth or maybe geographic or just other things, and as you've been going along here, has that changed at all? Once you in the market, has that changed or been tweaked at all?
The vision, I would say, is still very much the same as when we first started working with Scott and Christine. Um, Quite frankly, we knew that we had a rocket ship on our hands, and the vision was to take this model and scale it as quickly as we could, but more importantly, done as smartly as we could. And I think that is a consideration that unfortunately gets overlooked by a lot of emerging brands, right? They
Yeah.
just go out and they recognize they've got a great idea, but they don't think about how to do it in a way that will ultimately benefit their franchise network
Yep.
in the best way possible. And so we're very, very keen on that, and we have been from the beginning, that we need to do this, really thoughtfully.
I like that phrase, scale smartly. I've been following some brands out there, and you read. I mean, again, you're in the industry a long time. You read about these brands that are selling, 100 a year in their first year or two, and and I always say that there's no way a company can keep up with that, with the support structure for that. And then, as you said, it's probably not laid out smartly for the franchisees, the people that are coming in. And I'm confident they picked some of the wrong franchisees with that kind of volume, with that kind of selling as opposed to awarding. And so, man, that's year 2, 3, 4 are problems. I think with that kind of growth. So I love that. I'm gonna steal that phrase from you if I can.
Please do.
So
I've been using it for years. It's all you, my
no,
friend.
I love it. I mean, it's beautiful. I've not heard it before. It's great. Scale smartly, and that's not only benefiting you. That's the forethought about your franchisee. Which again, our audience, you wanna, if you're considering recommending Xtension Envy, or you're thinking of buying an Xtension Envy, you want to know that the franchisor has the franchisee in mind.
Well, listen, Don, to be perfectly frank, the franchisee is the first consideration we have in everything that we do.
Yeah.
The one of the things that I have always loved about franchising as a business model in general is that if you do it right, and your franchisees are successful, then you as the franchisor are successful. And
Yep.
so it's in your best interest to do everything you can to help franchisees recognize that success.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
it's
Absolutely.
just passionate about that.
Yep, yep. So right, so right. So, everything can't be rosy and perfect, and I always tell my prospects to, don't get these rose-colored glasses off. Franchising's wonderful, but it's not all perfect. But what have you guys, what's maybe, and again, I shared earlier with you that part of our audience is fellow emerging brands, founders and executives. So what's been a challenge that you've seen, and how have you, or how are you addressing it?
I think there's really one that I can really speak to here, and I'm finding that given the circumstances that we're all in today, having come out of that pandemic, where there's been a lot of disruption, a lot of people's lives, many different levels and many different ways. I think franchising as a viable business opportunity is perhaps more popular than ever. And I think that as a result, there is exponentially more competition out there of businesses and models and concepts for people to consider, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I think what I would say our single greatest challenge has been capturing those eyeballs, right? And getting those folks that are looking for a franchise to recognize ours, right?
Yep.
Because there's just so much out there today for them to look at. Now, I think we're doing an excellent job at that, but certainly that has been, it's a battle that everybody faces, right?
Yep.
When launching a new brand, it is. But I just think, again, that just the sheer volume of other companies that, by the way, to circle back to what you were saying and that we were just talking about, they just decided to franchise their business and they don't really know how to do it and do it smartly, but they're still out there, right?
Yep.
Vying for that same candidate. So,
Yep. And it's not just emerging brands that are looking for lead generation or
No,
those
it's not.
eyeballs. I have a client that's very mature brand, and that's one of the things we're working on. It's interesting you bring this up because I just ran a roundtable this morning for brokers and consultants, and that was one of the questions. Hey, the elephant in the room that we all know is we all have trouble finding leads, or lead generation seems to almost always be a challenge. And so, yeah, that's great. That's great. So let's flip it 180 degrees and just go, hey, what's been like one of the really highlights, the real success stories so far?
That's also an easy one for me, Don. It really is. We onboarded our first area representative team not that long ago, a father-daughter team. And they were awarded 3 territories for a total of 40 licenses between Arizona, Colorado, and Utah, all 3 of which are going to be slam dunk markets. And look, that in and of itself is a huge milestone for any brand. Even more so for an emerging brand, and then even more so as that's your first actual transaction that takes place. And the last thing about it that was just so great was who they were. This is a father-daughter team that between them have well over 20 years of experience, right, in franchising and in franchise operations and development. So it was really sort of just a validation for all of us, knowing that someone that is cut from essentially the same cloth sees what we see, and sees it so much that they're willing to, dive in and be the first.
And how exciting, the father-daughter team. I mean, how exciting is that? And they'll be great, ambassadors for you as well. For what you just said, having come in with a lot of experience in the franchise world already and decided to make such a big commitment. That is really cool. One thing I wanted to ask before I forget, and that is that because I remember this with the brand that I had, and you guys might have a similar situation. When I was first for a brand that came in overseas. I was the first master franchisee for a brand that came in from overseas, and it was new. Nobody understood anything about it. So as being one of the first, I had to do a lot of education about the business before I could sell somebody a franchise. Is there any of that at all? Am I maybe off a line with the extensions or any of that your area directors or other people might have to be doing?
Not really, Don, which is another thing that's really attractive about this. Our clients, they know what hair extensions are. They know what to expect. And it's sort of interesting. They have a preconceived notion as to what it's going to cost them. And then they come in to see us and they are very pleasantly surprised when it's a fraction of what they were expecting to pay and what they may have been paying, over the time that they've been a consumer of hair extensions. Look, for franchisees, Don, if we go to that level, if you're not a stylist, if you've never operated a salon before, certainly there's going to be some education that needs to take place, right?
Okay.
You're going to need to understand what hair extensions are, differences, how they're installed, how they're maintained. No one's expecting a franchisee that doesn't have a background in as a stylist to be doing the actual service.
Okay.
But we certainly want our franchisees to know what it is that they're offering their clients.
Yes. Yes.
Because listen, they need to be out there, for lack of a better way of saying it, pounding the pavement, right? Generating interest in their business, talking about their business, and inevitably that requires them to be able to speak from a place of knowledge about the services that they provide.
Yep.
But luckily, they're not complex.
Good. And just real quick, because I'm very familiar with the Massage Envy. In fact, I could be mistaken, but they were probably the first ones with a real membership, or at least somebody that really took it big. Probably outside of the gym models. Do you want to talk about that at all? Is that something that would be worth spending a minute or two on, or?
Well, I mean, I think we could touch on it in one particular way, Don. I think that, to your point, I would agree with you that the founder of Massage Envy, much like Scott and Christine, saw an opportunity to fill a gap in an industry that had yet to be filled.
Yeah.
And he recognized the significance and the game-changing way having a recurring revenue model would positively impact the business.
Yeah.
And so having an opportunity to work in that organization when I did, it was pretty fully baked by the time I got there. However, as you can imagine, as I'm sure many of the people listening here can imagine, that these are often evolving concepts. And so I was able to really see and understand, how do you structure a membership, right? That's the thing that gets you that recurring revenue that brings great value to your member, right? That incentivizes usage so that member gets the value from that monthly fee that they're paying every month. And that was truly invaluable knowledge that I was able to pick up.
That's awesome.
In that organization.
Really, really good distinction. That's really, really cool, Josh. Thanks.
Sure.
I want to go through briefly, who you're looking for, so people on here can say, hey, that you just described me, Josh. But before I do that, real quickly, any surprises? Again, you've been in the business so long, maybe there are no surprises. But for those in the audience that might be emerging brand people, something for them to put on their radar. And any surprises as you've been rolling out a new brand?
Yeah, I don't know that I would say it's a surprise, because I've experienced so much. I would never go so far as to say I know it all and seen it all and experienced it all, right? I don't think we ever will be able to say that in the business that we're in, Don. But I think if I had a word of advice for anyone looking to build a new franchise concept, or has already started and is trying to scale it, I would tell them to be very conscious about who they bring into their organization as a franchisee out of the gate. Try to resist the urge to just bring in anyone that has a check in hand. The success of your first handful of locations will make or break your business. And if you have the wrong people out there operating your locations, you're just going to make it that much more difficult for your brand to succeed. So
Absolutely.
that is the one, really, truly, that's the one thing I would say is be particular.
Yep. So for listeners who are emerging brands, hear those words. And for people who are making referrals, be sure you listen to what Josh is going to tell us in answer to my last question, because and for buyers of franchises, you want a franchisor that is saying what Josh is saying. So let me go to the last thing. Let's segue then to who are you looking for? We've got consultants, broker consultants on the line, some folks looking at franchise opportunities. Who are you looking for so people know how to match up with you or align with you?
Don, we want people first and foremost who are passionate about being in the beauty industry, that are passionate about helping their clients feel more empowered, sexier, more confident, and oftentimes just better about themselves than when they initially walked in the door of that salon, because that's what we do every day. And so there's a very human component to this, and we want franchisees that see it, that get it, and that want to participate in something like that. I think another key characteristic of what makes a really great franchisee is someone that understands that, yes, they are buying and operating an independent business. They are independent business owners. But I really, truly subscribe to that old saying. It's all for one and one for all in a franchise network. And, we would like our franchisees to be excited about the success of their fellow franchisees, and to allow themselves to dedicate or take as much time as they might have to help other franchisees be successful. Because again, it's like when one location is successful, that only contributes to another location being successful.
Absolutely. Yeah. With the internet and ratings and
reputation management is unbelievably important. Particularly in this industry. It's important everywhere, but particularly in the salon and beauty industry, you just want people that get it, that this is a group effort. So I think those are really two key things.
Very cool. Very, very cool. All right. Here's the real kicker question. This is the final thing I ask. Okay. And by the way, anybody who wants to get a hold of Josh, franchise.xtensionenvy.com is the way to do that. So please reach out to Josh if you want more information. In closing, especially with someone with your experience in business and your experience as an investor, your experience in franchising, is there anything I haven't asked, or there anything that we haven't discussed, hasn't come up, that you would like to leave with the audience? So who is on, who's viewing us right now. Is there anything you'd like to leave with folks before we wrap up?
Sure, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so. I think that for those of you that might be considering presenting Xtension Envy as a viable opportunity to your clients, meaning brokers or consultants, or to potential candidates that might be listening to this show, I want everyone to know that one of the great things about getting involved with an emerging brand like ours at this stage of the game is that you have a direct line to the top, right? You are going to be trained, or your clients are going to be trained and educated by the founders themselves, right? Yep. By me, right? And so when people oftentimes they say, okay, well, they're emerging, maybe I want the brand that has 500 units already open. You're not going to have access to the CEO and founder, or to the founders who is the chief training officer, who's going to be literally showing up in your salon the week before you open to train your staff, right?
Yep.
And you certainly wouldn't be dealing with me, right? Because at some point, I'm going to have to hand off these kinds of responsibilities to someone else. So it's a really great opportunity for folks to get direction and get knowledge from the people you want to be getting it from right out of the gate.
Yep, and that was huge for me, and I would add too, especially with your culture, the fact that you'll listen to them as well. So if you want to contribute to the growth, even beyond your units or your multiple units, an emerging brand is going to give you that opportunity, and that certainly was one of the exciting things for me. Well,
Yep.
Josh, you've been awesome, man. So
Thank you.
I appreciate you, and thanks, and that's a wrap. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you. Thank
You
you,
bet.
Don. Thank you so much.
You bet.